this is the first of a series of interviews with people who are also dealing with this self-quarantine isolation situation that is going on with the current state of the world. I hope y'all like it. We've got more in store, so I'll give it up to me in the past.
It's recording. I thought it blacked out. Hi, my name is Mia.
What is your quest?
To find the Holy Grail, of course.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
It depends. Is it an African or a European swallow?
That I don't know.
And I was supposed to fall off your chair.
Okay, so sorry. I have the questions on my phone. So
No,
that's if I'm looking down.
That's okay.
So how do we know each other?
You're my roommate. Not like in this exact moment, but we've lived together for a year and a half, like technically 2 years.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, where are you currently weathering this storm we call a pandemic?
Currently, I'm in the northern suburbs of Chicago. I'm at home right now.
Okay. So, like, when you were, it's like, where were you when the pandemic first started affecting your education?
I was originally in Perugia, Italy, which is a town in the central region of Italy, in the region called Umbria. I was studying abroad there, and the pandemic first really hit while I was, or affected me while I was studying there when the pandemic first got to Milan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that when they first started to be like, hey, you guys need to start moving or this is going to be an issue?
Well, so what happened initially was, I very fortunately was able to go on some trips during my few months there. And so I had gone to Milan a couple weeks back, but then our next trip was to Venice, Verona, and Padua, which is for Carnival. It was Carnival season. So I was there with a student group, and we were as we got there, the news kind of started breaking out that there maybe a case around the area or whatnot, and we were actually going to some student party or something. And as we were arriving there, one of our group leaders was like, hey, so just so you know, there's a confirmed case in the town where we're staying, but we were staying so far out of the town that we were fine. And then we got through our day, and this town that we were staying in, or on the suburbs, on the peripheral area, was supposed to be our Sunday trip, which was Padua. But we ended up deciding to go to Bologna on the way back down to Perugia, just to maybe not getting involved with the virus. But on our way back home after Bologna, one of the group leaders got on the microphone on the bus and announced, hey guys, so since you guys were in Venice this weekend, which is, they had, at that point, that was when they had shut down Venice. I got out the day before they shut it down, but they said, hey, since you were in Venice, the universities have been talking, and they decided that you are not allowed to come to school tomorrow, and you should not leave your apartments or wherever you're staying until 6 p.m. You have to self-quarantine. And we were all like, well, a day is nothing. That's not, going to be helpful. But they wanted us to quarantine just so that they could decide what they wanted to do with us. Because at that point, a lot of the schools in Milan had been shutting down. A lot of the northern region was really affected. And since, we were central Italy, there weren't any cases in Perugia yet. There weren't any, there wasn't as much of a mass hysteria. Life was so normal. So it was really hard to hear that there may be this epidemic happening, or it was happening 2-3 hours away from us, just because we weren't affected at all. So I had to stay home, and because not only were there was about 10 of us in our 100 kid program that went on this trip, there were a bunch of other kids that went to Venice for that weekend as well. And so they decided to cancel school on Monday, because they were let's just be safe, everyone stay home. So we got an extra day, which is kind of nice. And then about, so that was like end of February, like last weekend, or the second to last weekend of February.
Okay.
Monday was canceled, and then the following weekend, on Saturday, was when we heard that the program was canceled. And that was because Italy had, or the WHO had raised Italy's crisis level to a level 3 rather than a level 2. So even though it wasn't where I was, we had to leave at that point. So it was a very, very short period of time, like about a week, less than that. It went from nothing to crazy, crazy change.
So similar to what happened with a lot of us at universities, where within like 5 days it went from we're just moving classes online for like 2 weeks to everything's online, everything is canceled.
I mean, like, I even joked when we were on the bus, I was like, if like we keep escaping the virus, because my friend and I, we had been in Milan and we like got out, and we had been in Venice. We were like, we're winning, we're beating Corona. And then I was like, I was like, they're not going to cancel the program. They would never do that. And then I even joked, I was like, if they cancel the program, I'm dropping out of school and like pursuing stand-up comedy, because like, how could you not with a story like this? But then then they canceled it, and I was like, oh, I'm going back on my word. Like, I'm staying in school. But it never in a million years did I imagine that anything like this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And especially like Italy first, just because like however the transmission happened. Italy seemed to be getting so many cases because they were actually testing for the virus. So it was crazy.
It's very bubonic plague-esque.
It is. It's a little spooky. And I try to, keep a light heart about it, just because there is nothing, that we can do, and it's not one individual person. Like, it's not like,
Yeah.
it just affected me. It's affecting everyone at this point, and it's, such on a massive scale that I don't know. It's kind of crazy. So
Yeah. So we kind of started talking about it a bit. So, like when you were first told to come home, what was your immediate reaction?
I was in shock. Like so let me give you what happened the day I found out. So I think they sent out an email like at 4 a.m, and a bunch of people, I guess, were texting about it. And so people had already known, like 4 a.m. People were up, like it was Saturday morning. So people were probably up from the night before, like getting up early. And on that morning, I was going up to Norcia, which is like a mountain town, because they were having a truffle festival, like the fungus truffles. And so, and I, it's one of the common foods there, and it's amazing. So my friend and I had decided we were going to get an 8 o'clock train. We're going to go to Norcia, going to go to this truffle festival, enjoy the day. So we decided to like meet in the piazza at like 7:15 in the morning, and 7:15 rolls around. I'm dead asleep. She calls me and she's like, "Mia, you got to get up." And so I'm, I was out the door in 5 minutes, just gone. So I'm like, starting to run, like actually run down the street. And Perugia's a hill-based town, so everything was uphill. Like, if this is where the city center is, like at the top of the hill, I live down here, and it's at least a 45-degree incline to get up to the top. And I felt bad. So I'm like running, but my phone's blowing up. And my friend who I was waiting for me, she was messaging our group chat like, "Hey, the program's canceled." And so I just see that, and I'm like, what the heck? So I'm running up the hill. I called her, and I was like, what's going on right now? I'm also like dry heaving because I am running and talking, which is like not a good combination. And she's like, "Mia, calm down. Like, it's okay. You'll be fine." And I'm like, no. Like, I'm not crying. Just like, what's happening? So I was really in shock. I think at first I was like, we're getting deported. But then, the thing is, like with something like that, we're not being deported. Italy's not, getting rid of us. We're perfectly fine. Like, I'm a middle class, wealthy white woman. Like, I'm perfectly, like, I'm going home to a nice home. Like, so I started, putting things into perspective, and I went through like just a series of like waves of emotion that first day, just between like I was like numb for a few minutes, and then like I was talking to the lady in the train station ordering a coffee, and I almost broke down in tears because she was like, have a great day, and I'm like, I'm never gonna see you again. Like it was hard just because it felt like it got cut so short. And since and they like in the email they told us we had to be gone by Friday, like we had to leave, like we had to get out. And my parents were like, you know what, like they were so sweet, they told me not to worry about it for that day, we'll figure everything out the next day. But it was hard just because everybody else was freaking out, so then I couldn't relax about it. So I mean, on that Sunday I had my flight booked home for Saturday, so it was like shell shock for sure. But I will say I was kind of slightly mentally prepared, just because after they had canceled school on Monday, like from the Venice trip, my mom was like, oh, just get prepped, they're gonna cancel your program. I'm like, they're not gonna do that. And then one day I was like, oh my gosh, what if they do that? So then I started thinking about like all the things I could do at home. And there's so many things to do here, obviously not now, but like I had contingency plan for what I would do if I had to come back.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is, what's been the hardest emotionally during this period? Like, especially now that you are back in the United States and we are in a similar situation to Italy, although not at the same exact extent, but like we're still also in this like shelter in place.
I think that the hardest thing emotionally was just the general adjustment within the first 2 weeks. Like the day before the program got canceled, we were by this lake, and it just seemed, it was so beautiful. And I was sitting again with this same friend that we have escaped the virus, and we went to the truffle festival. And we were sitting at the lake, and I turned to her and I said, you know what? I feel like I finally fully adjusted. Like, not only do I like study here, it's not that I'm like necessarily a study abroad student, but I live here. Like, I feel like I live here. And so then the next day, all of that was ripped away. And it was hard to also because like with the student group we were traveling with, a lot of them were local students or other international students. And so we started forming a lot of relationships. And, based on what I've heard from like other study abroad experiences, a lot of the times the second half of your study abroad program is when, at that point, everyone's kind of figured out their routine. You started doing some traveling, figured out some friend groups, and then all your relationships just solidify so much. So I feel like, in a way, I didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye the way I wanted to, or there's so many future relationships that I could have had that I won't have in the same capacity. I also lived with a host family, and so I felt bad just because I didn't spend as much time as I would have hoped I could have, or gotten to know them as well as I could have. My family was also supposed to come for their spring break, and so they were gonna come, and like my whole family, like my family is Italian, so like my whole family was coming. They were really excited. We were gonna do a big trip. And so then, that kind of got canceled. So I think emotionally, the hardest thing was I felt like this really big loss of this experience, mostly just because I, as soon as I understood what the concept of study abroad was when I was a child, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And it's, I tried to come in with not as many expectations in terms of like what it would be, but I never really considered what it would be missing. So kind of in that regard. And then, just adjusting back here, like my first 2 weeks, I had to self-quarantine, of course. But my family was still, existing as normal. So I was alone a lot. And it was hard just because I felt like it was the only people that would understand what I was going through were other Italy students. And then all of a sudden, all study abroad programs got canceled, and everything started getting canceled. And I just felt for everyone, because I would never wish, my emotional kind of like mini roller coaster that I went through within those like 2 weeks, or even the week from finding out I had to go to being home for a couple of days already. I would have never wished that on anyone. It truly was a big feeling of like loss and grief.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, what do you feel has been also the hardest with like moving all your classes online? Because as we were talking before recording, you're still having your lectures, and that's been interesting because most of your professors are still in Italy, or your professors. are still in Italy.
All of my professors are still in Italy. I will say I really miss the connection of getting to see my professors. And like classes in general, like a lot of my classes were are discussion based, and they're not as much like project based as some of my classes back, at like Minnesota. I could easily have taken one of those online and I would have gotten a similar experience. Whereas this one, like, so much of your learning is not only in the classroom, but it's outside of the classroom as well. So like, 3 of my 5 classes were taught fully in Italian, or are taught fully in Italian. And I'm still taking those in Italian, but I'm not getting that extra, opportunity to just like have casual conversations with like shopkeepers or general people within the town. So I think the biggest thing that I'm missing right now is all of the learning that happened outside of my classroom. Also, it's not as like casual anymore. Obviously professors are starting, to be more lenient in terms of like coursework, but it's not, oh my gosh, what did you do last weekend? Or there's the relationships again. It's kind of like a loss of relationship sort of thing, but the relationships that I started building with my professors just can't be, like we can't express it in the same way. Like we can't joke around as easily because then sometimes someone's connection's off, and then I don't know. It's just different. But it's okay. I feel like I'm in a rhythm now. This is my 3rd week of online class, so I don't feel like it's as foreign anymore. But I do miss kind of the like overall education that I get outside of the classroom as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So on like a happier note, kind of like what's the first thing you're going to do when especially the restrictions here in the United States start to be lifted?
Oh, we've been talking about this actually in my family. I think we're going to host like a really big party. Like we're really well known for like our family get-togethers, just because sides of my family live in the area. And so we were talking about it. Like we're always known for 4th of July. Like we have like any outdoor activity you want to do, like just going, like there's just so much, there's food and, family and friendship and love. And it's just fun. It's so fun. So I think, my parents have been talking about it. I think we're going to do like a really big party with the whole family.
Okay.
I'm really excited for that.
Does this mean that if the everybody here, we can get in one car and survive the trip, we're also invited?
Oh, of course. Yeah, totally. Come party. You guys can crash in my room. We can make room. We'll figure it out. But yeah, you guys are more than invited. Absolutely.
Okay. And so last 2 questions I have. Do you have some form of like hope or optimism as we're going through this whole thing? Like,
I think like if we're looking at like a general silver lining, at least in my personal life, I feel like this is the first time in like 4 or 5 years that my whole family is home all together. Which is nice, just because, like we were always at home when we were little kids, but then my brother went off to school, and then I went off to school, and my younger brother is not really little anymore. And like, I haven't had the chance, or I haven't had this same type of opportunity where even if we're working or doing homework, like we still spend all day, every day together. I really like my family. So it's nice now that, especially we're older too, like we get along easier. We have other things that we like to do, but just generally speaking, I really hope that this is an experience that, as negative as it may be for so many people, that we're able to still maintain some of like the human connections that we've built. Like I feel like I'll value my relationships that I have so much more, just because when you don't get to see someone every day, or like it just I feel like I won't take things for granted as much, just because although even like whether it be study abroad, school, like having work to do, like being able to work and having a job, like just anything that I even if I don't have a job, but like anything that I could potentially have that may be restricted by something like this, or something about staying in my house, I feel like I'll just generally be more grateful, and I really hope that other people are able to keep a positive mindset and be able to find some humor and laugh a little bit every day throughout these quarantine days.
Yeah, so that actually, what portion of what you were talking about kind of goes into that last question of like, what's the one thing you're going to really take from this? Like, my joke is nowadays I'm always just going to be carrying around like a thing of hand sanitizer no matter where I go out. Like, it's like,
yeah, it's so true. Everyone invest in Bath and Body Works. I was going through my under my sink, and I found a whole bag of hand sanitizer from Bath and Body Works that I bought when I was 11 or whatever. So, they don't smell as great, and I don't necessarily need like glittery hand sanitizer, but I'm able to distribute it to family and friends and stuff. So, yeah, absolutely hand sanitizer. I feel like just that, and like generally speaking, being able to be happy and like fortunate for the position I'm in with my family, and just relationships, and again being able to have the opportunity to be positive throughout this and not have to worry about if I'm gonna what I'm gonna cook for dinner, or how I'm gonna get my food, stuff like that. Just like the little things that I don't necessarily think about as often, but yeah, I think I'm never gonna forget this. Like, like I think it's so crazy to say that when the pandemic hit the world, or when it left China, like I was in Italy, like I was in Venice the day before they shut it down. Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, and poor Venice, like who knows how much longer they'll be there with all the flooding. Like that's that's a once in a lifetime experience. So as much as it's kind of it's hard, it's also going to be material for my future stand-up career, or my autobiography that no one will read, but I'll have consistently writing in my head. But
yeah, it's just like you see natural disaster, and you're like, I'm just gonna run a little bit, and it just like whatever speed you're at, that's like it just stays just behind you.
It got me. Here I was like, I'll outrun it. She sniped me. She went, gotcha, and I had to come home. But that's okay. Like, I'm okay. The rest of everyone else, I just hate that everyone else also had to experience something like that. But obviously, it's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than all of us as a worldwide pandemic.
So I'm already in a separate place because I realized I needed to film an outro. So thank you for watching. Hope you subscribe, and I'll talk to you all next time. Bye!